Hello, everybody, and welcome to Hours Later, the informative review show that's worth the wait. My name is Alex, and today I'm going to be reviewing Monster Hunter World, the latest game in the long-running Monster Hunter franchise. Monster Hunter World casts you and your Palico companion as a hunter that's part of the Fifth Fleet. You've been tasked by the Research Commission to provide assistance in the New World, where you've been charged with studying Elder Dragons to figure out why they migrate to said location every so often. And by study, I really mean weakening the creatures by attacking, then carving and or capturing their remains. Don't tell PETA. Admittedly, I thought that Monster Hunter World looked like it could be a button-mashy, hack-and-slashy good time. Due to numerous deaths early on, I quickly realized that its gameplay revolves around something called animation priority. What this means is that if you're expecting to win battles just by mashing buttons, you'll quickly wind up hacking away at the same direction as your target monster quickly gets behind you and burns you to a crisp. This is why many reviewers draw comparisons between this game and the Souls series. You'll need to learn the kinds of swings you make with each weapon, dodging whenever you're able, and using the right move at the right time. I didn't find the combat too punishing compared to the Souls games, however, though I did find that within the first several hours of the game, I failed to understand why my sword kept bouncing off of certain parts of a monster's body. If you're experiencing this problem with your game, I'll give you a hint. It's not because your blade is dull. Rather, the game wants you to learn about the monsters by throwing you into the wild and expecting you to fail. You're not given any meaningful prior knowledge on how to defeat the monsters you're tasked to hunt, and it's only by observation and careful poking that you'll manage to take them down. In a way, it's sort of like playing a game of poker where, instead of identifying a tell to figure out if your opponent has good cards or not, you're using this tell to let you know whether the monster will charge towards you or hit you with their tail. This is, I believe, the most rewarding part about the game. Instead of displaying a boatload of meters on screen, the game has chosen to hide these things from you, asking you instead to focus on the tells and react accordingly. That said, Monster Hunter World's creatures do display visible signs of wear and tear, showing parts as scratched and scarred should you inflict enough damage to break them off. This focused attack strategy can increase the probability that rare materials drop. In fact, there's some materials that can only be obtained by breaking certain monster parts. Capcom said that Monster Hunter World is the first real attempt by the team to try and break the series into mainstream. It's because of this that Monster Hunter World features a plethora of quality of life enhancements and tutorials, even giving you a space to play around with all the available weapons at the start of your adventure. But the game fails to fill in the smaller details that can really help you in battle. Early on, many new players like myself hit the Anjanath wall, the monster most players consider as the game's first real challenge. After being defeated repeatedly, I quickly searched online forums seeking help, not fully understanding why I was being defeated easily. It's only in these online environments that certain concepts, such as monster iconography, are detailed extensively. Players shouldn't really be searching for these elsewhere if you're going to be offering tutorials in-game. Though it's certainly a game that benefits greatly because of the passionate community that have built massive wikis about the series over time. If it sounds like Monster Hunter World is a time commitment, it's because it is. It's a game that demands that you learn from it than the other way around. I personally hate it when people say, well, the game gets better after you play for a couple hours, but this is one of those games that does get better over time. With persistence, of course. By observing and poking at monsters instead of obsessively wanting to execute a full combo all the time, something finally clicked in me and made me realize that I'd finally cracked the code, if you will, and began understanding how the combat actually works. It's never about just fully executing any combo, but rather using the right combos to systematically take down a monster. Like Neo in The Matrix, I began to anticipate all the attacks that the Anjanath would throw at me, and would provide a worthy counter to any attack, like a kung fu master parrying an incoming punch or kick. When you've gotten to a point that you feel this way, that's when you know that Monster Hunter World's gotten you in its claws. You realize that all the time you just spent isn't so bad. It is, in fact, so addicting that you can't wait to encounter the next monster so you can apply all this newfound knowledge. One of the reasons why I picked up Monster Hunter World is because it's known for its online co-op. Unfortunately, the developers make some questionable decisions that can impact players' enjoyment if you want to primarily play with other people. For example, in order for players to group up for the story-based assignment missions, all the players need to start their own missions individually and watch all the cutscenes that play within. After being told that they're now allowed to use the SOS flare in said mission, the players will need to quit their mission and join one of their friends who still has their mission running in order to play the assignment mission together. Also, if a player wants their friends to join an ongoing expedition, the open exploration mode in the game, they will need to fire a SOS flare which allows other players to join. This does not, however, guarantee that your friends will join, as any player can join your expedition. They only need to respond to the SOS flare. In a way, I can understand why the assignment missions were made to function this way. It respects the integrity of the story they're trying to tell by forcing it as a requirement amongst players. But it's 2018, and we've had many great examples of how you can achieve this without the experience of trying to group up with your friends being so terrible. Yes, it's terrible, because you have to deal with this for a story that spans close to 100 hours. Other missions, such as optional, investigations, events, and arena fights, don't impose these arbitrary requirements. So it's really unfortunate that the one thread that moves you forward through the game can be really frustrating. On the subject of the story, it's nonsensical at best. Capcom boasts that Monster Hunter World has the most in-depth story in series history, and while they're not lying, there's plenty of things that don't make sense. One really good example of this is how one Elder Dragon is supposed to go to a certain location only to be driven a completely different direction with absolutely little to no explanation. This is most unfortunate, as I love stories in games and was expecting Capcom to put in the same care and time on the story as they do with the gameplay. And oh boy, that gameplay. Shortly after defeating the Anjanath, Monster Hunter World starts showing its hand. The assignment missions start trickling out new features that you didn't think the game had before, even opening up new kinds of monsters and challenges. In fact, I'm not even convinced that I've seen everything the game has to offer. It's definitely surprising, as most games generally tend to show you everything that you can play with around the first 25% of your time with the game. I recall when I was nearing the end of my armor upgrade path and getting sad that my journey was almost over, only to have the game open a completely different tab several hours later with more armor, and, much to my glee, given the ability to upgrade said armor beyond their limits once I crossed the 100-hour mark. If you love crafting in games, this game has you covered. While some longtime Monster Hunter vets tell me that the game features a lot of monster animations that seem to have been recycled from previous games, the presentation, the graphics, sound, and music all mesh together to form a cohesive package. And while the UI will take a while to decipher due to the overwhelming amount of information you have on your character, I appreciate that they took the time to design the UI to fit within the game's tribal aesthetic. Every roar and sound effect feels purposeful and indicative of what monster lurks around the corner. And the weapon impact sounds feel satisfying, just as a monster smacking you feels infuriating. The gorgeous landscapes and environments are a sight to behold and offer a fantastic playground filled with traps and things you can gather, activate, and traverse through. I know it's cliche to say, but the worlds feel alive and rich with detail. Monster Hunter World, no doubt, will be divisive. Some will excuse many of its faults, and some will just outright shun the game because of them. I'll admit that I would have been one of the people in the latter. That being said, it's a series I wasn't familiar with at the start, and I took that leap to try and learn as much of what it can teach me, like a new student in a new school. Friends, I'm extremely happy to be part of this new school with some new friends. And while I've been prone to hyperbole for quite some time, I honestly can't tell you when I'd stop playing Monster Hunter World, regardless of how much it beats the living daylights out of me.